So Phil Horowitz is the other World War II veteran we're going to have on tonight. I hope he'll join us. But if he doesn't show up, we're running with you, Harry. How much stamina do you got?
Okay. How many people you have going to have, Harry?
We usually get a very nice crowd. I'd say we get about 40 or 50 here on the Zoom side, and then we get another 50 or 60 watching on Facebook and YouTube. So we'll have about 100.
Hello, YouTube.
Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. We'll have about 100 people tuning in.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really nice. Really
you're
nice.
You're in Pittsburgh.
I am in Pittsburgh, and you are in where?
I'm in Manchester.
Manchester, which is near Harrisburg or Philly?
Right near Harrisburg.
Right near Harrisburg.
Okay. Halfway between Harrisburg and York.
Okay. Got it.
And my family was originally from Johnstown.
Yes, that's right. And okay, so we'll ask. So where did you grow up?
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. That's right. Right. Okay.
My dad made it to Columbus. He worked for Burroughs adding machines. He worked for them and got caught in Columbus when the Great Depression hit, and that's where I was born. So it was some tough times too. The Depression.
I could only imagine.
These people coming across the border now just make me terribly mad because they get in and they get everything handed to them, even citizenship. And that just drives me nuts.
Well, we'd like to hear. I think it'd be good to hear about the Great Depression, what it was like to live in the Great Depression, grow up in the Great Depression, and then of course,
it really was tough. I mean, my dad. Well, we had 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. And one girl was killed by an automobile. She crossed the street without looking, and she got nailed.
Oh.
And I think that's what killed my mother because she was never well after that.
Oh boy. Hey, we need to get it going. Do you have the theme music going? All right.
Go ahead. Oh.
We're letting people in now, Harry. Here we go.
Music too.
Yeah, we're a classy operation. Hello.
I guess so.
Good to see you, Hughes. Hello, Kyla. Hey, Henry Shepke, good to see you. Good evening, you all. I am scanning the Zoom room here for, I'm looking for Phil Horowitz. Phil, if you are joining us, we would love to have you speak up. And you may be still entering from the waiting room here. People are entering slowly from the waiting room. My name is Todd, and this is the Veterans Breakfast Club. And this is our VBC Happy Hour. We have our program here on Zoom every Monday evening. We also have Wednesday morning and Thursday evening, but this is our Monday evening happy hour. And we have 2 special guests tonight. One is 99-year-old Phil Horowitz, who served in World War II. He should be joining us from Boca Raton, Florida. And our other is Harry Miller, 92-year-old World War II veteran. And I do want that to sink in a little bit. 92-year-old World War II veteran. That means he's young. There aren't many World War II veterans who are 92. So there must be something suspicious about Harry. I think he might have joined the Army underage. We're going to try and get to the bottom of this crime and see what the statute of limitations is on that, and talk to Harry about his 22-year-old Army career. How are you doing, Harry?
I'm here.
Good. And in Phil Horowitz, if you're here, you could let me know. You can speak up and let me know anytime you're here. And Ellie, you'll be encouraging, seeing if you could suss out Phil Horowitz in our group here. But I want to wish everybody a very happy Patriots Day. And I'm looking around. Do we have anybody here who is from Massachusetts, lives in Massachusetts or Maine, which are really the only 2 states that recognize in any, in a meaningful, although Wisconsin, Henry Shepke, Wisconsin, we have Henry here from Madison, Wisconsin. Okay. So My understanding is Patriots Day is really recognized as a day off school in Massachusetts and Maine. And in Massachusetts, it's a really big deal. In Maine, it's what do we have there, Brad Washerbaugh? Oh, Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
These are 2 Boston Marathon medals. And of course, the Boston Marathon's run on Patriots Day. It's a great turnout. The city of Boston really does it so well. And looking forward to normalcy back up in that city. So.
That's right. And my understanding is the Boston Marathon was run on Patriots Day every year since 1897 until last year. I think last year was the first year not to have it. And of course, not having it again this year. So it's a big deal in Massachusetts. Kids get the day off school. It's a state holiday. The Red Sox play a morning game. There's the Boston Marathon. And then Maine also recognizes Patriots Day because Maine was part of Massachusetts until 1820 and the Missouri Compromise. And I've also read that Connecticut kind of passed a resolution saying they recognize it. Florida passed a resolution encouraging people to recognize it. Wisconsin, Henry, my understanding is in Wisconsin, it's called a public school observance day, meaning they have to teach Patriots Day in the schools. Henry, do they on Patriots Day?
I've never even heard of it until today.
Okay. Well, Patriots Day is April 19th. And it is the day of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And that was that's why it's a big deal, especially
shot heard round the world.
The shot heard round the world. Exactly. The beginning of the American War of Independence. And me being writerly kind of guy, married to an English teacher. I want to emphasize here that in Massachusetts, they spell Patriots Day, the plural possessive. So it's a day belonging to all patriots. In Maine, they spell it the singular possessive. It is a day belonging to a single patriot, but they don't specify who the patriot is. And you'll see, and they also clarify the historical record. Paul Revere didn't ride on a horse. He did ride on a big lobster. Everybody knows that. If you've done your research, you know that it was the lobster that he rode. And then Wisconsin and Connecticut, I think they do the right thing. I think they don't make it possessive at all. They make it an attributive noun. This is an attributive noun. That means that Patriots is an attribute of this day. It is not possessed by Patriots. It is a...
Todd, if I can throw something in.
Yeah, please do.
Be careful of Patriots Day because I'm from Columbus and we used to celebrate Columbus Day, but now they're doing away with it in certain parts of the country too.
Well,
so watch out for Patriots Day.
There is a Patriot Day, which is September 11th, and that is a different day entirely. So there we have that. Yes.
So Todd, just a couple of things. One, Patriots Day with just the S. That's the name of the movie that's about the Boston bombing. And it's fantastic as long as you don't mind a whole bunch of F-bombs. But Patriots Day, and I don't know where folks in Pittsburgh typically have always mailed their federal tax return, but when Patriots Day falls on April 15th, that third Monday of April, in Maryland, we used to mail our IRS returns to Massachusetts and we would get an extra day.
I've read that. You get the extra day. Okay. And I know we're going to get to the regular program here, but you know that I'm one of these history guys. Mary, I'm glad you're here. Mary is joining us from Baltimore. I'm in Pittsburgh. Yes. April 19th is a historic date for another reason, apart from the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And it has to do with Baltimore. And in fact, that's why the governor of Massachusetts named it Patriots Day and not Lexington and Concord Day. Does anybody know what other big event happened on April 19th? I'll give you a hint. April 19th, 1861.
Oh,
Mary, come on.
The first bloodshed of the Civil War, the Rat Street riots.
The first blood shed of the Civil War was on April 19th, 1861, and it was a riot. It was the Baltimore riot.
That's why we're
And
Mob Town, baby.
It was a mob attacked the 6th Massachusetts volunteers, the 6th Massachusetts militia that had come down to Baltimore en route to Washington, D.C. to protect Abraham Lincoln and protect actually the Washington, D.C. because Virginia had just seceded from the Union. And so a mob kind of harassed and started attacking the Massachusetts militia. So in Boston, this is a big day because it's remembering the mean Baltimoreans like Mary who attacked the Massachusetts militia on April 19th, 1861.
I'll, Todd, for giggles, I'll shoot you as long as you don't use it in any kind of way. I'll shoot you my commentary about the tour that I give about it.
Oh, yes, please
I
do.
did a whole online tour, a virtual tour of the Pratt Street riots. It's a really cool story how they, snuck Lincoln through and started Pinkertons and all that. It's a good story.
It's a very good story. It really is. It's a fascinating story. And there's still, Lincoln snuck through dressed as a woman. He wore a tam. I mean, the Confederates had a field day with that.
No, not Lincoln. That was Davis apparently ran away.
Lincoln wore a Scottish tammy.
Yeah, he snuck through us, but they just brought him through a different train station is what they did.
So, and there may not have been an assassination plot against him then anyhow, but anyhow, it's a really great story. Okay. And I always wonder, one more thing. I always wonder, I do these blog posts every once in a while and put them on our website. I wonder if anybody ever reads them. And so I'm going to see if anybody here read the blog post about Patriots Day, because in that post, I reveal the winner of the first Boston Marathon in 1897. Can anybody name the winner of the first Boston Marathon in 1897? Speak up. Going once. Going twice. Okay, I reveal it. I did research. It was Tom Brady. He went back in time. He went back in time and ran the first Boston Marathon and won it just to prove that he could do it. So there we go. I put that historical fact in just to see if anybody's actually reading these things. I didn't hear from anybody, so I figured that's proof nobody reads these things. All right.
You're showing us a guy who left the Patriots on Patriots Day to go play in Tampa. And he wins the Super Bowl to boot.
I know, exactly.
It was John McDermott, and I cheated.
Hey, Todd,
Yes.
I'm laughing at also at the Paul Revere on the lobster, because if you've been to Christ Church in Boston, it shows him on a great stallion, but in reality, Paul Revere was fat riding a mare, and he actually never even made it all the way. He fell off his horse and got caught.
He did get caught. Dawes got caught too, right? No, Dawes.
I don't remember. It's the poem. The poem is so wrong because it was written to rally the troops, to get us excited is the wrong word, but about the Civil War. And so, nobody was even alive to tell him, oh, this is full of crap. But it's a great story. But,
it is a great story. It Revere and the other one, Dawes. I don't think Dawes made it either.
He didn't make it either, but I don't think he got captured.
Right.
I think he got lost.
But Revere was captured, but then was able to escape pretty quickly.
Yeah, but he still never made it to Warrenham. I want to say a woman made it there too to Warrenham. I might be wrong about that. I'll have to look that up.
Ellie and I were just talking about that. Oh, we're getting so sidetracked. Sybil Ludington. Sybil Ludington is the female Paul Revere. Okay, but that's a whole nother story. Boy, we get sidetracked too quickly here. But
before you go, Todd, he was right. There was a young teenager that was assigned to continue the ride. And so we did have a woman involved.
Really?
Yeah. And because she knew the countryside very well, and she was a woman, so she could avoid the British pretty easily.
Very good.
Yeah.
George, thank you for that. George Gullah. Do I see Ren Bergman with us? Ren Marine, thank you for joining us. Maybe thank you very much, Ren. I'm glad that you joined us. Ren is a poet. He's a Marine. He's a Vietnam veteran. and he wrote a wonderful, he's written several poems, but one of them that was sent to me by a couple of our veterans, the Unwelcomed. And maybe we could convince Ren at some point this evening or another program to recite it. That'd be wonderful. I'd love to. I mean, I think it's on par there with Ralph Waldo Emerson's The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. So that'd be wonderful. I will ask, I'm trying to kill a little bit of time to see if Phil Horowitz again is with us. If you are with us, Phil, please do let me know. And I also want to wish Ellie a happy last day of being 24 years old. She turns 25 tomorrow. Happy birthday, Ellie.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
When I see Ellie, when I look at her, this is what I see.
I wish I still had overalls like that.
Very, very cute. She was a sweetie then, and she's a sweetie now. Thank you, Elle. And then I see Glenn Flickinger is with us. Glenn, we have a program tomorrow for the 79th anniversary of the Doolittle Raid,
Right.
which was April 18th, 1942. And we are going to discuss the Doolittle Raid tomorrow night, and also the movie 30 Seconds Over Tokyo.
Right. And it's been really fun going back and rereading a lot of material I've read before on the Doolittle Raid. It is, I think, one of America's great military heroic stories. There's so many great characters to it. It's carried out in secret. There's a couple of characters we'll bring up that are not in the movie that are kind of forgotten to history. The men who actually originated the idea. There's no greater American story than Jimmy Doolittle, whose autobiography I recommend to everybody. It's called "I'd Never Be So Lucky Again." And the man was incredible. And he led the raid. He planned the raid, led the raid. And I really think without him, I'm not so sure it would have come off as well as it did. So, and the movie's a fun movie to watch, made during the war in 1944.
Yeah, we were just, Glenn and I were just talking about that earlier today. The Doolittle Raid happens in 1942. A book is written about it. It comes out in 1943. The Hollywood movie comes out in 1944. The war is still going on. And it's a very well done movie. And I'll be interested in kind of talking about the movie, and we'll have Elaine Wertheim on who will kind of walk us through the movie. We'll have Glenn on who will walk us through some of the history. We'll have some good conversations. And good. Ben Wright said he's done his watching of 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. I plan to watch it later tonight or tomorrow. So I haven't done my homework yet. And Larry Googans, he's from Maine originally. I want to wish him a happy Patriots Day. Although it's singular possessive, you in Maine spelled it wrong. That's okay. It was right in spirit, but got to get rid of that singular possessive. That's my opinion there.
Very much. I appreciate it.
Very good. Very good. And then one more thing, one more announcement, and then I want to get to Harry Miller's great story. And that is Wednesday morning, we have our virtual breakfast at 9 a.m. And we're going to be doing something that I think you'll enjoy. We did this at one of our breakfasts 2 years ago when we were having in-person events in the South Hills. We played these reel-to-reel tapes, just snippets from them, that this man, Rick Poller, who's in the 4th Infantry Division, sent home during his time in Vietnam in 1967, 68. Boy, are they funny. He sent one home to his parents. He sent one home to a friend of his, and he sent one home talking about his week furlough or week leave in Japan. And so Rick is going to join us. We're going to play some snippets from these reel-to-reel tapes, and he's going to talk about it. It's pretty neat. You hear some artillery going off in the background, and it's pretty cool. So join us Wednesday morning if you can. Does anybody have anything else they want to announce or question they want to ask? about any of this stuff. All right. Thank you, Scott Masters, for introducing me to Harry Miller, who is our kind of our marquee guest tonight. I'm just so fascinated with this story, in part because of the age. Harry joined the Army when he was 15 years old. And I'm guessing, Harry, that your decision to join the Army at age 15, and Henry Shepke very correctly here in the chat has said Calvin Graham was the youngest World War II veteran. Oh, what a story his is. He joined at age 12, wounded at age 12, badly wounded at age 12. Harry, there were hundreds of thousands of boys like you who joined the military during World War II underage.
Yeah.
Why did you do it?
Well, excuse me, I always wanted to be in the Army, ever since I was a little kid. Mainly, I think, because we had an Army post in the middle of town, and every time they had a parade, they had Army troops out parading. And I can remember the Civil War veterans were still marching. These guys in the almost looked like the Starvation Army, but that's pretty much what it was. And I always wanted to be among them. I don't know why. Other kids wanted to be firemen and cops and, but I always wanted to be in the Army. My grandfather was in the Civil War, and his grandfather was in the Revolutionary War for 8 years. And so I don't know, maybe it was in me. I don't know what the reason was, except all my friends that I chased around with had been drafted or enlisted already. And I was alone in the neighborhood, so I just wanted to get in some way. So one day, a friend of mine, a man in the neighborhood, said, I understand you want to go in the Army. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And he says, well, they've got some kind of a new program that they're starting. And if you're 17 and a half, they'll take you in. That way they can get you for the Army, because the Navy and the Marines have their own program at this time. So I said, well, I'll look into it. So I went down and talked to him. And the guy says, well, how old are you? And I said, 17 and a half. And he says, okay. He says, you got a birth certificate, bring it in, and we'll see what we can do for you. So I went down to the county seat and I asked him for my birth certificate. Well, they pulled out this gigantically big book of some kind with all kinds of names in it, written in with pen, real fancy writers, And they looked in there and they couldn't find my birth certificate. So they said, well, you just don't have one. I said, well, is that unusual? And they said, yeah, no, it's not unusual. It happens all the time. So I went back to the Army and I told them, I said, they don't have a birth certificate for me. And he said, no problem. That happens all the time. Well, of course, remember, this was 44 and they were hurting for people. They were grabbing anybody. So I had 6 months or a year of military training in the Ohio State Guard, which was pretty much nothing more than what the National Guard used to be before World War II. And so they took me in. And after I got in, I saw some publications laying around there, and I started looking at them. And it was Department of the Army, Department of Defense at that time. But they had these forms that said that if you wanted to apply for active duty, to fill this form out and submit it. So I filled it out and gave it to them, and I thought, that'll never happen. But sure enough, they called me and said, when do you want to go? And I said, right now. They said, okay, report so-and-so, and they took me in.
What did your parents have to say? That you're 15 years old, you're in school.
Well, remember, my mother died when I was 3. Okay. My dad died when I was 13. And I was already going to half a day of school and half a day working, because we had to have money brought into the house. So I was used to that. And of course, the teachers didn't like it at all that I wanted to get out. But I told them, I said, I'm going to go one way or the other. So you might as well forget it. And so I did. I went in, and later on, I got my GED test after I was out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. In fact, over in Okinawa. And that's how I got in. And I stayed in. And I ran across a lot of guys that were 14, 15, 16. And the best part about it, when I was in basic training, one guy there was 14 years old. We didn't know this yet. And he did something. The first sergeant made him dig a 6x6. And so he got in there and dug the hole, made the mistake of going over and knocking on the door, of the first sergeant's office. First sergeant growled. He said, "Come in. What the hell do you want?" And he says, "I just got that hole dug out there." He says, "Oh, let me come out and look at it." So he went out and looked at it, smoking a cigarette. And he looked at the hole and said, "Very good." He threw his cigarette in the dirt in the bottom of the hole. "Okay, cover it up." So he covered it up, went back in. I got the hole covered. He said, "Let me see." He went back out. He said, "Okay, now dig it up and get that cigarette butt out of there." The kid sat down and cried. And he says, "I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm only 14 years old." So they kicked him out. But he was the only one I heard of that got kicked out until after the war. But everybody was, I guess they did what I did. I kept my mouth shut, my ears open, and I stayed away from any kind of problems.
And nobody ever asked you, "Hey, you look young. Hey, you don't seem like you're 17."
No, nobody ever said I didn't look like I was 17, but they said, "You look awful young." And I told them, I said, "Well, I've always looked young for my age." And I really have until recently.
You still do.
I can't lie. They tell me I look like hell.
So Harry, I want to clarify something. So you were orphaned. Your mom died when you were 3. Your dad died when you were 13. Who is the head of your household then? An older sibling?
My sister, my oldest sister was. She was eight and a half years older than me. And she really became my mother. And I consider her my mother because I don't remember my mother. I don't remember anything about it. I think I have recollection of standing in my crib and seeing a woman walking by, and that's all I know. And I don't even know if it was truly my mother or if it was somebody else. So that I have no recollection of my mother whatsoever.
So you grew up fast no matter what. I mean, your mother gone, your father then gone. You were a mature 15-year-old, I would imagine.
Yeah, I had to be, because I was working in an office at Electric Light and Power Company here in Columbus, and people liked me real well, but I had to dress up every day, tie, coat, some kind. And that helped bring me up too, So I guess that's the only thing that did it, because I had to be very careful after I got in. And I went into an outfit that was full of people from Texas and Oklahoma. And of course, the first thing they said to you, "Where are you from, boy?" And I'd tell them Ohio, and they said, "Where the hell is Ohio?" And you go through that, but I had to be careful. I didn't want them questioning me too much. And so that's how I got by with the first year or two.
And you liked the Army. You liked it enough.
I loved the Army. I wish I could have stayed in forever.
What did you like about it?
I'm sorry?
What did you like about it?
I like the life. I like the camaraderie. I like the traditions. I like the fact of being a part of something that was accomplishing something. And I've never found that after I got out. Everything I got involved in, it would seem like it was dog eat dog almost. And fortunately, being retired, I never missed a check, so I didn't have to take too much stuff from them.
Right.
Or else I could have made it anyway on my retirement check,
Harry, you ended up joining the 740th Tank Battalion.
Yeah.
And could you tell people like what kind of tank that you operated in? It was a Sherman tank?
Yeah. Well, after I got overseas, but I had been in an amphibious tank battalion earlier at Fort Ord, California. And that's another story, getting some tanks over to Europe for them. Then I was assigned to the 740th Tank Battalion. And we had Sherman tanks, 3 companies of Shermans, 1 company of M24 light tanks. And I was put into the assault gun platoon. There had been illness, hepatitis was going around over in Europe. Our battalion commander got it. He went over with the 1st Armored Division originally, and he was supposed to go to North Africa, but he got hepatitis. They sent him back to the States till he got well. That's how he got our battalion. And when I got to the battalion, why, there was 4 or 5 guys that had been hit by this hepatitis. They sent them back to England. So later on, when they started coming back, well, then I was reassigned, and I went into communications, where I remained for the rest of my time.
So you were communications.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But when I started out, I was in the assault gun platoon of headquarters company.
Okay.
A lot of people didn't know that there was a headquarters company had assault gun platoon, a recon platoon, and a mortar platoon, and all of these things. They all thought we were all pencil pushers, but not in my case.
And so when did you ship overseas?
I went over in, well, we should have asked me that. I can't remember the date. I tell you, the reason I have such a short memory of that is because after basic training, I went to Fort Ord, California. And when I got there, they told me to get in line. I got some shots, and I thought they were for the Pacific.
Yeah.
But they called my name out and said, don't unpack, you're going on a trip. So I thought, well, I guess I'm going to the Pacific because I got all these silly shots. And I said, well, where am I going? They said, you'll find out. Well, the next morning we got together. We had to take a bunch of LVTs, landing vehicle tracked, over to Europe. So we loaded them on flat car, railroad cars, took them to Brooklyn Army Base and sent them over. And I landed at Le Havre, and that was in October.
Yes, you landed in, I think you went to Liverpool, England, maybe first in August.
No, I didn't.
No? But the unit did.
Battalion did, but I didn't. See, I went over as a replacement.
You went as a replacement, got it.
And that helped me because I was wearing a 788th Tank Battalion patch. So these guys in the outfit thought that I had been around the Army for a while. I had only been 2 or 3 months.
So they assigned you to the 740th when you got to Le Havre, when you got to France.
Yeah, I got there and we loaded the LVTs on flat cars again, and took off to Antwerp to turn them over to the British, because Antwerp city had been captured by the British, but they had not captured the port. And so that estuary coming down from the Baltic into Antwerp, you couldn't bring ships in there to bring supplies in because the Germans could shoot at them from the northeast side in Walcheren Islands there. So after we turned those in, then we went back to Le Havre and got assigned to the replacement depots there. I guess you know about the 3 cigarette camps at Le Havre. They were Old Gold, Lucky Strike, and Philip Morris camps. And I went to Old Gold until they got my assignment, which was at the 740th Tank Battalion. And I've got a black screen except for my picture.
Oh, well, that's you could change that. There's a setting on your iPad that you could change that to a gallery view or a.
Oh.
Yeah, you could change it to a gallery view if you want, but I wouldn't fool with it. I wouldn't fool with it.
Right. So that's how I got into the 740.
I want to invite people to ask questions or make comments. I see Jack Morrow, who's a World War II veteran, served in the Marines on Okinawa, says, and I love this comment, that's why I'm going to read it here. One of my proudest days occurred in boot camp at Paris Island when the DI told me that I had to shave every day. To me, that recognized that I was now a man.
That happened to me too. That happened to me.
That happened to you also.
Doing out in formation during basic training, and the sergeant walked up to me and got up real close. He said, "What's that on your chin?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "It looks like a hair." And I said, I don't know. I guess it's a hair or something. And he said, "You haven't shaved today, have you?" And I said, "No." He said, "When was the last time you shaved?" "I never have." So he said, "Get in there and shave and come out here clean shaven every day." I'm still doing that, of course. I could have killed them.
I love it. I love it. Oh man. Harry, let me, I think you said you sent me a wonderful, 10 page memoir of your service. And in it, I think you mentioned the buzz bombs at Antwerp.
Yeah.
Could you explain what those were?
Yeah. When I got to the 740th, they were in the town of Neufchâteau, Belgium. And Neufchâteau was just about 16 miles east of Liège. And the Germans were shooting the V1s, the buzz bombs or doodle bugs, whatever you want to call them. What they were was a kind of a cigar-shaped piece of aluminum, almost like a balloon, with an engine attached to it. And they'd come flying over, and they sounded like an old Model T Ford, chug, 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 chug. And of course, if the engine stopped, they would drop right now. We'd watch them go over, and we thought, oh, guys, I hope that thing doesn't drop, because we thought the whole thing was full of explosives. But it was just the cap of it. But anyway, we never had one drop on us, but they went into Liège and into Antwerp for sure. And they did a lot of damage.
And here's a picture of one. This is
that's a good picture of it. Yeah.
Yeah, doodlebug, buzz bomb. It was called the V1 rocket. I think it was the first cruise missile, essentially.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I think they weren't aimed. They were really just terror weapons to terrorize urban populations.
Oh, they tore up London with them. They sure did.
And you could hear them coming. I remember a veteran explaining to me, the V1s you heard coming. The V2s you did not.
That's right.
Because
the V2s went over so high that even if they had made any kind of a noise, you probably wouldn't have heard it because it was so high.
Right.
And we didn't know anything about those until after the war was over.
Harry, what do you remember of your first experience of combat?
Well, remember, other than the fact of being scared, and that's one of the first questions kids always ask me: were you scared?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And I don't know of anybody that wasn't scared. Now, I was just a kid, but I saw guys there, old men, 30 years old men that just shook like terribly. They were old men to us, or to me especially. And I can remember being under machine gun fire and looking at other guys while I'm laying there, keeping my head down, and their hands are shaking too. And I thought, well, I guess I'm all right, because they're doing the same thing I'm doing, probably praying too. But we were in my first time I was we were in the assault gun platoon. And what the assault gun platoon was and I don't know whether they have that anymore or not, but it was a standard Sherman tank with a 105 millimeter howitzer on it instead of a 75 or 76. And so what we were actually was mobile artillery. So if an infantry unit that we were assigned to was to attack a town, and they couldn't get them to surrender, well, they'd just have to take the town. And they'd generally have us come up and obliterate the town a little bit, knock off the church steeples, keep the snipers out of there. And then we'd wait. If they wanted us to go through town with them, we'd go through town with them. But if they saw a sniper at a window, second, third story, they didn't have any way of getting them. They'd tell us, put a round up there and get him, because they were shooting at the guys and the infantrymen on the street. And so we'd blow the whole top of the building off if they wanted it. 105 do a lot of damage. That's what we did. And that was the first thing that we did that day. Well, not my first day, but other things were happening with the battalion and the infantry units that they were assigned to. My first day, we were sitting in back of a chateau just outside the town of Stuma, Belgium. And the battalion commander was up on the kind of a veranda, and he was with binoculars. He was still giving us the coordinates to fire on. We obliterated the town of L'Église, Belgium. And the funny thing, I went back to Leglise here last in 2019 for on my way to Normandy, and I thought those people probably throw rocks at me, but you'd have thought I was General Eisenhower come back. You know, they just couldn't do enough for me, and they just treated me like a prince. They had TV stations there taking my picture and asking me questions from Holland and Belgium, and it was just so nice to go back. The little kids, first graders, you know, walk up to you, shake your hand in perfect English. They say, "Thank you for my liberation. Thank you for my freedom." And I'll tell you, if you get away from that and you're not balling, you ain't a man.
Yeah.
That got to me, really. And these little kids, they want to be so close to you. If you stand next to them, you'll feel them pushing up against your leg. You know, like they want to be a part of you. The people over there are so nice. They still teach their kids about what happened.
Yeah.
And they're so proud of the fact that young guys came over from far away and got them out of their troubles. It's so amazing.
That is
I
so
just love those people.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, they really are.
I'm going to show a picture of you, Harry, and I think the 740th was it called the Daredevil Battalion?
Yeah, well, Daredevil was our code name. You know, no unit was ever called by their actual unit numbers on the radio or in messages or anything. It was always Daredevil. And so we liked the name, and that was given to us by First Army. And we liked it. We kept it until we were deactivated in July of 1946.
And here is a Daredevil right here. That is you. Is that after the war?
That was taken right at the end of 45. I want to say about December 45 in the town of Limburg on the Lahn River, which is about 35 miles north of Frankfurt.
So you're the ripe old age of what, 16, 17, right there?
I was 17 then. Yeah.
Jeez.
And nobody asked yet where how old I was. So
17-year-old World War II veteran. I mean, you're a war veteran at age 17. That's just
those were some days, really. I look back and I think how lucky I was. I got to do the things I wanted to do, and how many people can say that in their life? And I've had 92 great years as far as learning and accomplishing what I intended to accomplish. I'm really very, very proud of what I was able to do.
Yes, you should be proud. I mean, Harry, I'm understating this. You should be not only proud, we are amazed that you did what you were able to do. I'm amazed that a 15, 16-year-old kid could get involved in something as big and complicated and frightening and important as you did and take on the responsibility that you did. I mean, you're 15 when you join the Army, you're 16, and the largest battle in the European theater, in the Western European theater, occurs, the Battle of the Bulge. And there you are, 16 years old. I mean, I remember when Ellie was learning how to drive, I didn't trust her with a car at age 16. And there you are, you know, fighting in this bitter cold battle. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Battle of the Bulge was like for you?
Well, when it started out on the 16th of December, 44, we didn't know that it had started. We could hear artillery in the distance, but we didn't know what it was. We figured, you know, wartime warfare, who knew? But we didn't get the word until the next day, the 17th. And they said for us to stand by that we might be put into action. They said, well, we don't have any tanks. They said, well, you may be going in as infantry. But we didn't want any part of that. But the battalion commander started scrounging around, and he finally found out that we could go to the ordnance depot in the town of, there was two towns. Targon was one. I can't remember the other one offhand. But anyway, we went there with the idea we were going to pick up our tanks there. Well, we got there, and all the tanks were old war horses that had been holed, you know, by 88 or knocked out for one reason or other, and all the parts were missing off the tanks. For instance, we couldn't find one tank that had a radio in it. We couldn't find one tank that had a gun sight for the main gun. And so we managed to cobble together 2 Shermans and 1 M36 tank destroyer. And it just so happened on the night of the 18th, they told us to proceed and get up to the Stoumont, Belgium railroad station. And so we sent those 3 vehicles up there, and they came face to face with the 1st SS Panzer Division, Adolf Hitler's Panzer Division, the outfit that had just gone through Malmedy and killed a bunch of Americans there. They had just come from Malmedy and they were going into Stoumont, and we stopped them. The 3 tanks knocked out the first 3 German Panther tanks that were on the road. 30th Infantry Division had infantrymen on both sides of the road in the ditches. And they came down the road, knocked out those 3 German tanks. German line just turned around and retreated. Well, then they came into Stoumont from another area, from another road. So then there was a battle in the town of Stoumont. First of all, there was a big infantry fight in the backyard of a house known as the Brown House. And that became famous. There was a lot of pictures of that in several magazines about it. Anyway, down the road from there was a St. Edward Sanatorium set up on a hill, still there. And we couldn't get up. There was 2 German tanks up there. We couldn't get up to get them. So because we couldn't get up, we waited till nighttime, and then we built a corduroy road that went up this hill so that we could get traction on our tanks. So next morning, bright and early at 6 o'clock, we got to the top of that hill and we knocked out the Panther tank that was up there. And down in front of the place was one of those old Whirlwind anti-aircraft tanks with 4 machine guns on it. We knocked both those out, and we went into the building and we found out there was a bunch of 30th Infantry Division guys that were stuck in those rooms and couldn't get out because a tank kept firing at them. Well, the building was really demolished. And we went down in the basement, and there was something like 92, I think it was, or 99 people down there, old folks and kids. And a Catholic priest was down there trying to keep them quiet. And you can imagine the job he must have had doing that, because every time the gun would go off, people have a tendency to scream, But he kept them quiet. Fortunately, nobody came down there to kill them, because they would have shot them down if they had known they were there. These guys just came from Malmedy.
Yeah.
They don't mind shooting Americans. Why would they mind shooting the Belgians? They did it on the roads coming in. They would shoot down if there was people standing on the road. They would shoot them down just for passing by. And so that was the kind of thing we ran into there. And of course, there from Stoumont, we went into L'Église and took that town. I told you about my time there 2 years ago.
Yes.
And after that, it didn't start snowing real bad until, probably, if I remember correctly. Of course, I didn't have a calendar over there then, or I didn't even have a watch. But I think it was around the 20th of December, 44, when the snow first started. And first of all, it was just a light coating, and then it built up. And by Christmas time, it was up to our knees, and sometimes all the way up to our ankles, to our waist. And that's when the snow really got bad. There's a lot of pictures that are out. I think I've got every one of them. I don't have them here with me, but there are pictures of a tank going down a fire break. You got one of them right there. That's one of our tanks. And those guys walking in back of it there and on top of it, they're from the 82nd Airborne. Because on Christmas Day, we got reassigned to the 82nd Airborne. And we stayed with them through the Bulge and into the Siegfried line. They were a bunch of great guys, and they still are. Even the ones from today, 82nd Airborne, they're my boys. I love every one of them. They were great guys. And I had a brother-in-law that was in the 82nd during the war. And as far as I'm concerned, they were number one. In fact, we like to call the 101st the 100 worst. And that gets a good argument going in case things get quiet. So we have a lot of fun with that. But anyway, there's several pictures, not only of this one, but other views along that road there. And one of our guys, I didn't send you, I don't think I told you about Tiger 332, but one of our guys was a tank commander on a Sherman, and he came face to face with a Tiger Royal Mark 6. And this was on a fire break similar to that road you just saw there. He came face to face with that. Now, generally, that's the last thing an American would see if they came face to face with a Sherman, with a Tiger Royal. But for some reason, the crew didn't do anything. So my friend, the tank commander, he decided, well, they must be sleeping in there, because it happened quite often. The tank crews that get so tired they just fall asleep. And so anyway, he fired a star shell up over the Tiger, and when it exploded, well, it shoots out real bright light. So the crew must have been asleep, and they thought they were on fire and abandoned the tank. Consequently, he captured the first intact Tiger Royal tank in Europe. When I say intact, I mean everything worked on it. There's other tanks that were captured, but they had done something to ruin it. And so anyway, he called back to the battalion commander, and he told him, he said, I got a Tiger Royal, I'm in it, and I'm going to drive this thing around. The battalion commander said, no, he said, get out of there. You might get hit by an American that doesn't know you're in there. He said, I'm driving this sucker all the way to Berlin. So he did. He stayed with it all during the night, and didn't come into anything. He wanted to shoot up another German tank with a German tank, but he never found one. So he had to abandon it because he ran out of fuel. So he reported back that he's abandoning it, and told him that you can find it in the town of Coo, Belgium. I love that name, Coo, C-O-O. And there's also a Petite Coo, by the way. But he dropped it off at Coo, Belgium. And so the next morning, the battalion commander had an ordnance unit come out, and they tried to bring it back in. He wanted to send it back to Aberdeen for testing. So they brought out a flatbed trailer and had to winch the Tiger up on the flatbed. Of course, when they did, the tires went flat, and the tank was sticking out about a foot on each side because their track was so much wider than the Sherman. But they finally got it up, and some clown in this ordnance unit put on the turret over 332. They put 462nd, I think it was, Ordnance Evacuation Company, great big letters. So they took it to Spa, Belgium, put it there by the train station, and I have pictures of that where it's sitting there, and the colonel and his staff are all inspecting the tank, and they've got a Sherman sitting in back of it to show you the difference in sizes. So anyway, they got it up on flatbed, took it to Antwerp, and they sent it back to Aberdeen, and it stayed there for 30 years. Finally, they gave it to Fort Knox Museum. I happened to be down at Fort Knox one time because we were going to have a reunion of my outfit there. And I went into the museum and I saw 332, and I said, hey, I got to see this. So I went around, and sure enough, they had sliced off one whole side of it so that you could see inside the tank. And they had a plaque sitting in front of it that says, captured by a 423 Ordnance Evacuation Company during the Battle of the Bulge. And I ran into the office of the director of the museum. I said, you got a mistake out there on your plaque. What's that? And I told him, I said, we captured.
Oh no. Harry, are you frozen? Harry's frozen. Harry, I think you're having an internet problem, and oh my gosh, it was a culminating kind of part of your story about being at Fort Knox and seeing Tank 322. I have all kinds of pictures of that tank that I want to share, including the one of them at Fort Knox there. Let me show some of these, and hopefully Harry will get back on. These pictures are just great. You know what? I'll just show the whole Google page here.
I think Harry just dropped off. I think his connection just disconnected him.
You could see, they put it on a flatbed. Here it is on the flatbed. They obviously wrote something on the side there, just like he said. I think this is at the at a museum. Here it is again. We can get the pictures. I just think it's so neat. So this is the only Tiger tank captured in World War II. That's my understanding.
Hey, Todd, when he talked about it being on display in Aberdeen, did he mean like Aberdeen Proving Grounds here in Maryland, or was Aberdeen in the UK?
I'm guessing it's Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. But did he say that it was there? It's now at Fort Knox?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said it moved to Fort Knox, and I was at Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Okay,
but it's at
thanks.
Fort Knox now. And I don't know if anybody has been to the Armored Museum, the U.S. Army Armored Museum at Fort Knox. You've been there, Bob Mizwa. I've never been there.
Yeah, because I'm an armor officer. Where do you think I took my armor officer basic and armor officer advanced courses? Very familiar with the museum.
Is it a great museum?
Oh, yeah. The crazy thing about it is they moved the armor school to Fort Benning, Georgia, about 4 years ago. But they can't move the Patton Museum because the agreement between the Patton family and the government was it will always stay at Fort Knox. So they can't move any of the armored vehicles from the Patton Museum down to Benning.
So, okay, so the museum remains at Knox.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, it's a great place to go and look at it, vehicles, armored vehicles from past wars and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I agree with Bob Book that it sounds like a good future VBC trip to the Armored Museum at Fort Knox when things open up again.
James coming this time.
Very good. Very good. And the other trip we want to do is we want to do the SS John W. Brown in Baltimore Harbor, Mary. And we want you to give us a tour of all that because Larry Woods, we had that scheduled for 2020. And of course we had to, they weren't doing any trips. But we want to do that again because Larry Woods Larry, you're still with us, Larry Woods?
Sure am.
There you are. Yeah. You made me think of this because your father served on a Liberty ship. And it made me realize how, I was so looking forward to actually being on a Liberty ship and trying to understand how terrible that ship was and how ugly it was.
I think she looks beautiful sitting there, but probably not serving on it.
FDR said something like, I think Franklin Roosevelt said something like, that's the most wretched object I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I think they're beautiful. Were you going to be doing a specific thing that was just your group, or was it part of the big World War II sailing they do with the music and all?
We were doing the big World War II thing in August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely keep me posted on that because I would love to, finally meet everyone and in person and take you on a tour of the city, do my normal go around.
We got to do that. We got to
we'll go up in the neighborhoods where the wire. No, I'm just kidding.
So it looks like we're just going to do open conversation here for a while without Harry. Hopefully Harry will get back on, but we may not be able to. Henry Shepke, I think you said that you got Harry's autograph at one point, I think.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good. And Mr. Masters, you interviewed Harry, your class interviewed him?
Yeah, I guess that would have been in the early part of March. And I had no idea you were going to have him on tonight, but we actually just finished Harry's webpage like 2 or 3 days ago. I had 3 of my best students do the editing and they finished it a week ago. And I just went through and proofed everything and put it up on the webpage. I think 3 days ago.
3 days ago. Oh, that's wonderful. Could you link to it?
Yeah.
Scott, that'd be great. And put the link here in the chat so people could watch the interview. I see Harry is back with us. Bob Brown also said that he spoke with Harry, I think at a Battle of the Bulge event a couple years ago, it looks like.
Oh, you hear me?
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Good. How are you, Todd?
Good.
Yeah. So, Harry will probably remember this, I hope, that he attended, the Battle of it used to be called the Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge, and then we changed it to Battle of the Bulge Association. And every year until the pandemic, we had a commemoration in Washington, D.C. that would last for 2 or 3 days. And Luxembourg and Belgium officials, diplomatic officials show up, and we're entertained at the Luxembourg embassy in Washington, D.C. We go out to the Belgium ambassador's residence in Georgetown. It's an incredible event. And there was a retired colonel named Alan Cleghorn that brought Harry, that met Harry. Does Harry live in Washington, D.C. area? He must.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember Alan Cleghorn, Harry?
Sure do. Yeah.
Okay, so Alan got into the association through. I met Alan at another history event, not World War II, and then I got him to join the Battle of the Bulge Association, and he took the bull by the horns and recruited a bunch of people and brought Harry to a commemoration, like I said a few years ago. We enjoyed his presence and I hope you had a good time, Harry, with us, because we enjoyed yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. And I wanted to clarify one thing on that Tiger tank. It went to the Patton Museum, however, and that's a picture of it right there. 443 ordnance evacuation. That's devils painted that on there, and they never should have done that. Anyway, that tank was at the Patton Museum, and they sliced that whole side that you see there off so that you can see what it looks like inside. Now, when they moved the armor school down to Fort Benning, they got permission to take that tank down because they had to get it from Aberdeen because it was their property, and they were loaning it to Patton Museum. So Patton Museum couldn't tell them what they could or couldn't do with it. So they took it down there to the infantry base there because all the armor is there now, which is a good idea because during World War II, we had no training with the infantry. And if we got overseas, that's who we supported was the infantry. So I wanted to clarify that.
So that is an important clarification. So if you want to see the Tiger 332, you got to go to Benning. It's it's on display at Benning, it's no longer at the Armored Museum, the Patton Armored Museum at Fort Knox.
Right.
Thank you for that.
You bet.
I'm going to share some other pictures of the Battle of the Bulge. There are quite a few of them of your battalion, your tank battalion. Here's one.
Yeah.
You can just see, I mean, these are some of the iconic photos of the Battle of the Bulge because you have that fire break between those remarkable trees of the Ardennes, and you see the depth of the snow. How cold were you, Harry?
I just as I looked at that, I started getting a shiver.
Really?
I don't know how cold it was over there. I never found out from anybody.
Oh no, Harry.
Hey, Todd, one of my questions, if you get him back, is has he been back to see the memorial that the Belgians built? Because it's fantastic.
The Battle of the Bulge Memorial?
Oh, it's beautiful. I was just wondering if he's been back to see it.
We'll have to ask him if he gets back. I'm going to share.
Yeah.
There's another picture. Just, man, I do remember early on in a Veterans Breakfast Club event, when we were first getting them off the ground in 2009 or so, a man came in and was wearing a winter coat, and he wore the winter coat the whole time at the breakfast. And it wasn't really winter. I mean, I think it was April, like this time of year. And he said, and I mentioned it to him, and he said, you know what? I got cold in the winter of 1944-45, and I've never been warm since. And man, I'll never forget that's, I mean, he literally had frozen feet, almost lost his feet. The whole, frostbite was such a problem. All right, Henry Shepke, he's sent his, I'm going to share this link if you want to see Harry's autograph in his collection. And so, hey, we'll wait for Harry to come back. Oh, Harry, are you moving? Are you still frozen? Oh, I see Harry moving. Here we go. Just have to unmute.
Yeah, okay. They just told me to do that.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm still alive, barely.
Well, we're just showing pictures here of the Battle of the Bulge, and I'm just amazed at the depth of the snow, and you could almost, feel the cold. And how did you stay warm?
Well, you didn't really. You couldn't build.
He's gone. Harry's gone. So sad. Okay, well, maybe he'll come back. Is Ren still with us? Ren Bergman.
Yes, I am.
Hey, Ren, how are you?
I'm fine.
Harry will be back, but I want to introduce people to Ren. You go by Ren. That's your preferred name?
Rendell.
How did you get Rendell? Family name?
Douglas is my first name. Rendell is my middle name, which is a family name in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma. Okay, very good. What made you want to join the Marine Corps?
Kind of like our guest speaker. I've always wanted to be a Marine. I used to, in high school, I'd go in behind my house and stand sentry duty.
I guess that's a clue that you should be a Marine.
My dad was in the Air Force. He retired out of the Air Force, but it would have been a better move to have been in the Air Force. A lot better living conditions, but anyway.
Well, didn't your dad warn you about that?
No.
He should.
I didn't know we got hand-me-downs from the Army and the Air Force and stuff.
Well, Ren has written some beautiful, wonderful poems that especially pay tribute, I think, to his generation of veterans, Vietnam veterans. And I mentioned it because somebody, and I think it might have been Don Wolf, sent me very recently, just in advance or just after Vietnam Veterans Day, a poem called The Unwelcomed. And I read it and thought it was so moving, particularly because we had spent some time talking about Vietnam veterans and why there is such a thing as National Vietnam Veterans Day, and it's making up for the neglect of their homecoming. And I wanted to track down the author because I wanted to share it with the group and get permission to do so. And then I get a message from Ren Bergman saying, "Hey, how are you? I guess you were on our list. You got the welcome home box."
Yep.
Terrific.
And so I just, made comment with you that I appreciated receiving it. Quite surprised because it was after all the boxes were, given out at one time.
And you said, "Hey, I also write poetry," and I couldn't believe that you were the author of The Unwelcomed. And with your permission, I'll share it here on the Zoom side, and I would love to also send out an email with it. Do I have your permission to share that?
Yes,
Ren?
you may.
Okay. Let's get back to Harry. Harry, you got to finish the story here.
Okay, where was I? Okay, Christmas time, 25th of December, we switched over to being attached to the 82nd Airborne. We stayed with them through the horrendous part of the winter and got across the Siegfried line. And of course, First Army was the first again. We were first across the Siegfried line, and we had one heck of a battle there. And the main town that we took is not even there.
I'm hanging on every word, Harry. I should just break into song. What song should I sing? Let's see.
Old Broadway.
Old Broadway? Huh. Sean, how are you?
I'm
I'm
great.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to Sean. You were frozen, Harry. We didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. So anyway, we got there, and the floodplain was 2 miles wide, so we couldn't get across. So we had an artillery duel with the Germans over the river for about, I guess 3 or 4 days till we could till the engineers could get a bridge over the river. So we finally got across the river, and first thing I saw when I got into Durham, of course, it was flat from all the artillery and the bombing. But the first thing I saw, there was a statue there of Ludwig, the German head.
Frozen again. Well, if you could ask Harry a question, what would you ask? Or comment, if any of you have a comment.
Well,
Yeah. Let's go Scott Masters and then Ren.
I was going to say a great question for Harry if he comes back, and I think he just did come back.
Yep.
Hi, Harry.
Hi, how you doing?
I was going to say to ask him about how he tried to go to Canada to join the Canadian Army. I thought that was a great story.
Yeah, that was very similar to the other one. I got very disgusted and sorry about the Canadians losing the whole infantry division at the landing of Dieppe on the coast of Normandy when I was even younger. And for some reason, I had never been to Canada, but it just really disturbed me because I guess I was one of the original Anglophiles or something. But anyway, it just bothered me.
Oh my gosh. That is fascinating. I mean, you're frozen again, Harry, but the landing at Dieppe was a failed attempt to invade France in August of 42, I believe. So that would have put Harry to be 13 years old, and reading about the failure or the
Going to get that birth certificate and change the dates. So while I was thinking about how I'm going to do this, my sister found out what I was going to do. The one that I told you is practically my mother. And she asked me not to go up. She says, wait till you can get in the American Army. She says, that way you'll be with people that you know. And she says, you've never been to Canada. You don't know any Canadians. And I said, I know, but I just wanted to go up there so bad. So anyway, I went by her instructions. And so then when I got a chance to go to the American Army, I told you what I did. But I almost went in for the Canadians. A good friend of mine was at Pearl Harbor, and he was wounded, and the American Army kicked him out, and so he went to Canada, and they took him in, and he went through the war up in Belgium with the Canadians.
Oh my! Wow! So by my count, I mean the landing at Dieppe was in the summer of 42. So you were like 13 or 14 when you wanted to go to Canada and join the Canadian Army.
Yeah, I was bound and determined. If I could have made it, I would have. I know it seems impossible today. I was talking to one man. I told him about this story, and he said, he said, when I was 16 years old, he said, if I got a paper cut, I felt terrible about it. Yeah. And I said, well, I did too, but I said, I didn't let that stop me. I wanted to do something, and I wanted to do it, and I did it. And I tried to be like that all my life. If I wanted to do something, I did everything I could to do it.
You said that, of course, you were scared in combat. Did you ever have any close calls where you thought, you might not make it?
Well, I'm sure I had some because, somebody was shooting at me all the time. And I tried to explain this to people too. You're continually moving your eyeballs back and forth, checking if there's anybody in back of a tree or back of a bush, and every now and then something would shoot at you. And if you were lucky, and I was, I'd jump down real fast or fall down or something, and they missed me. So anytime I was on the line, I was scared, and I consider every one of them a close call. But I never wanted a Purple Heart, and I'm not a damn bit sorry that I never got one. In the same way with the Medal of Honor, I never wanted one of those because I knew what you had to go through to get that. A lot of the guys didn't make it, and that was not my idea at all. I wanted to live, but I just wanted to do my best I could in the Army, and I loved it. So that's the only explanation I can give. As far as tight things, one time I remember I was going down the road in a Jeep. I was in a passenger in the Jeep sitting next to the driver, and all of a sudden, zoom, his P-51 went over real close. I guess he was going to shoot at us, but he must have seen us at the last minute. And that's probably the closest I ever came to being killed, but that I know of. Who knows how many people were aiming at me at other times.
Mark, do you have your hand up here? Or are you clapping?
No, I have my hand up.
Okay.
Harry, I just love your story, and it moves me emotionally, as I said here. What a terrific piece of history you are walking around, number one. Number two, I as a old Vietnam veteran that came back and snuck in through Fort Lewis and nobody caught me, what was it like upon your return back to the United States, and how was it for you?
Good question.
Well, I didn't get back to the States until July of '48. I came back on leave right after the war. They gave us the opportunity to get 30 days at home total time.
Harry did serve on occupation duty in Germany.
Okay.
Until 1948. And then I believe when he came home in 48, he was not home for that long, for several months. He stayed in the Army, shipped off to Japan then, and so served occupation in Japan.
And the unit didn't break up until July of '46. And then they sent me, everybody went somewhere else, either to military government or to either the 9th, 1st, 3rd, or 9th Infantry Divisions were going to be the occupation divisions. But what happened was they decided to cut back one division. So they disbanded the 3rd Infantry Division, and that's who we were attached to. So they disbanded them, and they disbanded us at the same time. So they sent me to the 9th Infantry Division, 39th Regiment at Bad Tolz, Germany. And as lo and behold, they disbanded the 9th Division and sent it home in November of '46. And so then I was assigned to the U.S. Constabulary, which was a new organization. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with the Constabulary or not, but it was a police organization. And the idea was we were to keep law and order on the similar to the state police. And the MPs took care of law and order in the cities. So we had the border between the US and Russian zones, occupation zones. Plus we also did police work out on the highways, and we captured and stopped a lot of people black marketing and moving booze back and forth and not paying any dues on it. So anyway, I stayed there until July of '48. And the Berlin airlift had just started. And so I thought it was going to mess me up, but it didn't. I went home in July of '48, went back to the States, and went to Japan. Got to Japan in November of '48. and got there. I was supposed to go to the 1st Cavalry Division, but they called my name out and they said, "Would you like to go to MacArthur's headquarters?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Well, tell me about it." So they said that I'd be at the Daiichi building, which was his headquarters. And I thought, well, no more grease, no more horrible food, no more cold. I'll be inside all the time. I'll take it. So I took it, and I got there. They welcomed me, and they said, "We're going to put you in charge of the alert crew." And I said, "Alert crew? What's that?" They said, "Well, you'll be in charge of the group that goes forward to set up communications whenever MacArthur wants to go somewhere. And you'll set up communications and operate for him. And then when he leaves, then you'll tear it down and you come back to Tokyo." I thought, "Oh, okay, that doesn't sound bad. I can handle that." Oh, by the way, as I was going out the door, we forgot to tell you, you and your crew have to go and learn how to handle gliders, loading and unloading them, and riding in them. And so I thought, oh, wait a minute, now that wasn't in the bargain. Well, it is now. And so we went up to northern Japan, somewhere up there, I've forgotten now what town. And the 11th Airborne was just getting ready to go home. They were still there from World War II. But made them mad because some of them had to stay there and train us in gliders. So they did. We got our 3 trips on the glider. Thank God we lived through it. And the day we graduated, they said, "Well, we've got good news for you. The Army has just declared the gliders as obsolete." So we got down on our knees and thank God for that. And then we found out, well, next time we'll go in the C-54s and set up. Well, that was a lot better. And by the way, I don't know whether you know this or not, but anybody who rode a glider will agree. It was an instant cure for a lifetime of constipation. And anyway, so everything was happy. And then the Korean War started. And I thought, oh God, here we go again. And first time MacArthur wanted to go up to Korea, we had to go ahead and land at an air base there, American Air Base, and set up our tents and get our communications in the line. And he went up and did his thing. I don't know where he went, but he kept in communication with us in case he wanted to send anything off. So anyway, he was there his time, and then he left, and we shut it down. We went back to Tokyo. And every time he went over there, we had to go ahead of him. And so then when they booted him out, why, that was the day, just about the same time I went home. I think that was 51, as I recall. It could have been later, but I just don't remember. And anyway, that was my story about the Korean War. And of course, people say, "Well, where were we at in Korea?" And I said, "I can't tell you where I was at. All I saw was an airport runway and a tent, and all the work we had to do, and then closing it up and going back." And I said, all the air bases over there were numbered in Korea. They had a number, not a name. So I don't know where I was at in Korea. I know at one time I was at the big area at the bottom where they just about got kicked off. What town was that?
Busan.
Busan, yeah, that's it, yeah. And I remember being around Busan at one time, but then later on when we went up further, we were in closer to the battle, and that was close enough for me.
That was close enough for you. And
yeah.
when you were in Tokyo, were you at this building, the Daiichi?
Daiichi building, yes, sir. That's where I live. It's still there, by the way. And I was there in 2014. Got a free trip to go over from the home here, and so I went over and saw that. And there's two. If you look at that picture, you'll see a white building next to it, and then a brown, kind of a tan building. That's where I lived.
Oh, really?
That was a Sanshin building, and both buildings were an insurance building before the war. And MacArthur's go right up to the center of this Daiichi building and go up to the 6th floor, which is that first row of windows up there. That's the 6th floor, and that's where his office was.
Huh.
Now every day when he had the best office hours in the world. He'd come to work about 11 o'clock in the morning. He'd stay there till about 1 or 2, and he'd go home and come back about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then he'd leave, go back home about 7 or 8. It's a pretty good deal. I mean, if you're calling the shots, you might as well do it the right way.
Did you ever see
So
him?
anyway, when he'd come out of his office, he had a full colonel go up to the roof, and he had his honor guards up there, and they would make sure that nobody messed with the mechanics of the elevator. So he came down with a full colonel operating the elevator, the old style elevator. We had to turn this wheel, Full colonel brought him down there, and then the honor guard were lined up straight into the middle of the foyer of the building, and then making a right turn and all the way to the front door. And he'd come out of there and the elevator, his hands in his pockets, bent over, and that stupid hat with the big grease spot in the top of it. If I'd have worn a hat like that, I'd been court-martialed. But anyway, he would come out looking like that, and there he is. And when he came out, there'd be a whole bunch of Japs standing there on the sidewalk, and they'd be all hissing. They hiss because it's not proper for them to breathe on somebody. So whenever somebody gets around them, they go like that. And you could hear all that hissing as he came by. And he would straighten up, and he had the darndest salute I ever saw in my life. I can't even do my hand like the way he saluted. I mean, it was terrible. But then you saw pictures of him, and boy, you'd have thought he was right out of West Point, But he was a showman. He was really a showman. Eisenhower once said that he had learned dramatics from him, and I kind of believe it, because he was very dramatic. He never sent a message that wasn't on tape, wasn't as long as the Daiichi building. he was terrible about that. Where I could write a paragraph, he could write a book, and I guess that's a key to it as part of his success. But he sure drove us crazy in communications.
Oh, this is so great.
Yeah, we had to keep teletype machines there so he could talk to Washington, and the poor guys that operated the teletype machines, I felt sorry for them, because everything had to be just perfect. And he wouldn't talk to a lowly enlisted man. I mean, guys, he wouldn't have anything to do with it. He'd tell a lieutenant or a captain or somebody, tell him I want this so and so. So he'd go over and say, the general wants so and so. And after he learned to trust the operators, and he would just go ahead and tell him what he wanted. But he was something else. He was something else.
Now this is so great. This is like such a wonderful, just as Mark said, like this living history right before us. It's so wonderful to hear these stories, but I want to let people know that you stayed in the military. You had a 22-year career. And I will add that when you retired at age 22 in, I guess it was 1966.
No, I wasn't age 22.
Did I say age? Oh, I'm sorry. When you retired after 22 years, I should say, in 1966, you got a draft notice.
Yes, I got a draft notice 90 days after I got retired and settled down. And I called up and I said, hey, I think you made a mistake. I said, I just retired out of the service. You better get down here or I'm going to call the police to come and get you. And I said, I'll be right down. So I took all my discharges and retirement orders and everything, and I went down and I just walked in the office. I said, I'd like to talk to the head man. And the gal there says, well, it's a head woman and she's in there, go ahead on in. And I thought, a head woman? Oh, God, now I got problems. No, I don't think I said God. I think I said something else. Anyway, I went in there and she says, don't say a word. I'm going to call the police. And I said, wait a minute, let me show you my paperwork. She said, I don't care. Either sit down and register for the draft or I'm calling the police. Put her hand on the telephone like that. I said, give me the papers. So I filled out the papers and sent them in. And I took off. And I thought, well, why would they do that to me? And then I got to thinking, my God, the reason being is I went in before I was 18, so I didn't register for the draft for World War II. I was in when Korea started, so I didn't have to register. I was in when Vietnam started, I didn't register. That's how they caught up with me. Why didn't they get me before this? They knew where I was. And later on, about 40 years later, I went down to get a passport. And man there said, well, you got to have a birth certificate. And I said, well, they don't have a birth certificate for me. He said, well, you got to have one. And I said, why? You people sent me all over the world in the Army and the Air Force. And I said, now I got to have a birth certificate to take a lousy trip over to see what I did. And he said, no reason for it, it's just our policy. So I went to get my birth certificate. And sure enough, now it's on computer. So they said, we have to mail it to you. So, okay, they mail it to me. I get it in the mail, and it's about 5 inches square, maybe. Got my mother's name, my father's name, where I was born and when, but my name is blank. So I took it back to the passport office, and they said, happens all the time, don't worry about it, we'll take you. And I thought, I heard those words before. And he says, yeah, I imagine you did. He said, okay, we'll take you. We'll give you your passport. And I said, well, thank you very much. I said, at least now when I go, I guess it'll be legal. I said, I guess it wasn't legal before. He says, yeah. He says, all you ex-GIs try that on me. But it was something.
Oh, Harry, I could listen to you all night. This is, Harry Miller, a veteran of World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. By Vietnam, you had moved to the Air Force. You had joined the Air Force and kept your rank. What was your job during the Vietnam War, during the early buildup of the Vietnam War?
Well, I was in Strategic Air Command, and of course we had all the missiles and all the bombers, and I was still in communications. And SAC had a lot of missions going on all the time. What do I say here? Low battery close.
Oh,
let me plug this sucker in, and I'll be right with you.
I love Harry Miller, my new favorite person. This is so great.
Anyway, I can't get a wire over here. Hang on a minute. Linda.
You never know what you're gonna. That's kind of what's fun about these programs here.
The thing. Hurry up.
His battery's gonna die any second now. The program's almost over, Harry. Hey. Okay, Harry, you could, unmute. There you go. Are you plugged in?
No, not yet.
He will be in a minute.
That's the story of my life,
I'll plug him in here. Give me a second.
Lost a lot of battery already.
Who is your lady friend there? Can we say hello to her?
There she is.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Her husband.
Nice to see you.
Her late husband was one of the captains.
Oh, Harry. Oh, we just almost had it. We almost had it. Let's see if he comes back. If he doesn't, we might just wrap up and maybe invite him to come on Wednesday morning if he can. Let's see.
I think he leaves on purpose right at that perfect time.
That's right. There he is.
Now I got you.
There you go.
I started to tell you that her late husband was one of the company commanders in my tank battalion. He had D Company, our light tank company. Of course, I was in headquarters. And so we met over in Europe when we went over for a reunion, and there was only three veterans along on that trip, and she and I were the two singles of the group. And,
Well, there were other singles.
And so anyway, we started going together, and we've been together ever since.
Oh, how wonderful!
She can't get rid of me.
No.
Yeah, right.
I'm like an old dog that got fed,
Or a bad penny, huh?
Yeah.
Harry, this is so great. Thank you so much. I'm looking at the clock here. It's 8:33. We usually go to about 8:30. Can I ask you, and this may be difficult on you, I'm not sure. If you could join us Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., would love to talk to you more. And you are frozen. Okay, I think this is a good place to stop. Thanks to all of you. Thank you for putting up with bad internet connection, but boy, wonderful stories. It's so good to see everybody. Hi, Terry Swank. Good to see you, Sue Watson. Great to see you, Ren. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us again. I'm gonna email you, schedule you to come on. Harry, I was going to say, if you could join us on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., we'd love to continue a conversation with you then, if you're able.
Wednesday, what is this, Monday? Yeah, I can do that at 9 o'clock, I think.
Okay, I'll send you a reminder email. Would love to have you join us, and we could wrap up some of the questions that we have for you, okay? All right, you're frozen again. Good night, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night.